This week on the 77% Street Debate.
Some of the ladies, they force us to beat them.
What do you mean they force you? Do they hold your hand and make you slap them?
There's even a belief of I am powerful more than you and therefore I should beat you.
Government has been at the forefront of, victimizing women.
I totally object. Violence against any person is criminal in Uganda.
Hello there, welcome to the 77% Street Debate. My name is Fatu Elika Muloshi. Now, we are in a country where 95% of women and girls have experienced some form of gender-based violence. It is Uganda, and in this country, women and girls are at the center of social and economic life. Yet, almost all of them have experienced either sexual or physical violence. GBV is a global human rights emergency according to the United Nations. Most of our Ugandans, a critical issue that they've agreed to on paper. And I'm going to start with you, Safina, not only because you are an activist, but also because you have a personal story in relation to this topic.
I was 8 years old, like you mentioned. And this was happening at school. The teacher who was supposed to take care of us as students, as pupils, was the one who was violating us. I wasn't the only one. There were other girls that were being victimized by this man. He didn't face any tangible consequences for his actions. All they did when one of the kids reported to their parents was his employment was terminated and he was let go of the school. By the school, they didn't report the matter to police. He wasn't arrested. Nothing happened to him. I was too scared to, talk about it.
Yeah. Let me just come to Diane here. Talk to us about your situation, your case.
Well, my experience was more of financial and emotional abuse with someone who I was in a relationship with, and he continues to abuse women of my nature up until now.
Did you talk to anyone about it? How was that received?
I did speak to several people, but in Uganda really doesn't help much because men hold the upper hand.
Let me just come to you, Olivia, as well. Is your case similar to hers?
Can I say that me and Diana, the same person who violated Diana is the same person who violated me. And for me, we even have a child.
You mean this is the same person who is Diana's abuser? He is also your abuser?
Yes, please.
She mentioned in the Ugandan society nothing gets to be done about it. And that goes for you too. Did you talk about it?
When I talked about it, I found that he was being instead supported than me. I decided to keep quiet.
Okay.
Men here are taken as, I don't know, even when they violate women, you find they support men.
Kenari, you are a journalist and you also cover GBV cases. But you've come out recently to talk about your own experience with GBV in your marriage. How are you coping?
I mean, just finding help with talking to people who are experienced in this, and just also to encourage also men out there to come out and seek help, because as much as I understand today's topic is about gender-based violence against the women, I think on the other side, when you flip the coin, there is gender-based violence against the men, and it's a growing pandemic. So me coming out to speak out was to say, look, when you look at it on the other side, just even to give you statistics, when you have about, for example, in just one single year, 13,000 reported cases of GBV on average every year, you have about 3,000 of those. That's about 18% men coming out to report cases.
Let me just come to you again, Safina, because in the beginning I mentioned that you are an activist. Let's talk about some of the perceptions around GBV. Why do the Ugandan community think this is such a normal practice against women?
It's mostly a cultural and religious thing, which all comes together to be a patriarchal thing. Women are looked at as subhuman. So if you're subhuman, obviously someone is going to assume that they are above you and they will victimize you in so many ways, beat you up, rape you, talk to you in a dehumanizing manner, crush your spirit, literally. And these behaviors are encouraged in a way that, women are meant to be punished so that they are contained in a way.
I just want to come to Caroline. We've heard from some of our survivors who've mentioned economic abuse, but also social abuse. What are some of the other forms of violence against women or gender-based violence that you have in Uganda?
Well, the sexual and the physical still take lead. However, like this year's theme to end digital violence is to end digital violence against the women. So with the uprise in the technology, so where most of the people in the uptowns are on the internet, on social media, we've come to realize there's a lot of digital violence. That is the other form of violence.
Let me just come to Senior Superintendent here. Of course, the police is the first point of contact for crime, but we've heard from what the survivors have said. When they report, nothing happens. Why are perpetrators not brought to book?
Some come to police just to get a reference. Once we enter in our books and give the reporter a reference number, it becomes at times for some people it becomes a bargaining ground. Cases of sexual abuse especially, once an SCD reference is got, it will be a bargaining platform for the community to sit between the side of the victim or the survivor and the perpetuator, and they will never come back to police. 2, the structure or the system shortcomings. For example, police at times we are far from where crime happens from. Apart from Kampala, where you are right now, in villages you find one sub-county has a police post, and the village where a crime has occurred is, for example, 10 kilometers with a very bad road, and the police at times doesn't have the means of transport to immediately respond.
Let me just come back to you, Caroline. What would you say, in your perspective, as someone who's dealing with GBV survivors, that is the reason why most times these cases are not taken further?
I'll give a case in point. There's a time I'd gone for advocacy in Kamocha. It's a called TLC. It's a community center that brings together, community people around the place. And so one of the caretakers showed me a girl that in one of the days they were praying. And the girl said a prayer that dear Lord, I pray my dad dies. And then she was like, oh my God, how would you say such a prayer? And then the child said, because the father beats the mother all the time. Now, every time they've gone to the police to report the case, he'll be taken inside, and then the next day he'll come back to the same house. So she has given up reporting.
So the police doesn't do anything whenever they report the case?
In Uganda, we call it gambanogu.
What's that?
Like
Senior Superintendent is laughing. She knows the terminology here.
It's a Nyakore phrase for talk to this person. So they're well connected. So when you're taken in jail, like you have some people you talk to, and then they bring you out. So you give up reporting.
Yes. Let me just come to Abdul Nasir. What do you think about gender-based violence in Uganda?
For me, I think it's fine to beat a woman.
You think it's fine to beat a woman?
Yes.
Why? Because a woman is a punching bag?
No, she's not a punching bag, but when you're dating, I start becoming too optimistic with her, and I start feeling I want to settle with her. Then she start doing some wrong things.
So you're trying to discipline her?
For me, I think that I'm just putting her in line.
Don't you feel there's another way you could do that without being physically violent towards her?
When you do something wrong, I just keep shut for several times. And when it becomes too much, I have to discipline you.
Yes, the police has something to say to that.
I totally object. Violence against any person is criminal in Uganda, and we have laws punishing violence. To me, I would urge couples to communicate their grievances.
Yes.
If you fail to agree amongst yourselves, you can seek services. But battering or any form of violence, I speak as a police officer, is criminal.
Kinari, the gentleman here says he feels it is his responsibility to discipline his partner. Do you think there's a cultural problem here?
Yeah, there's a cultural problem in the way society really expects people to be, especially when you look at the upbringing of persons here in Uganda. We grew up when, in the community, men are beating women, women are beating men, and therefore there's even a belief of I am powerful more than you, and therefore I should beat you. When you find cases where, for example, a woman is earning more than a man, you find they have to feel like they are, superintendent over them, and therefore there's a societal and cultural problem.
Let me just come back to you, Diane. What would you say is the common misconception that people have of survivors of gender-based violence?
One of the most common misconceptions is the man had to have a reason to treat you like that.
That they justify violence?
Yes, that's how they justify it. A woman must have done something wrong to make the man hurt them physically or emotionally.
So, Bob, that brings me to you, because your organization, which is the Gallop Initiative, right, is working with people like you, men, women, to change the narrative. What exactly are you doing in that area?
We normally advise these survivors to first of all go to the police and report, because there is no case if you've not gone to the police to report what you're going through.
In your case, do they report in any case?
It's quite challenging, given the fact that there are a couple of factors that are stopping them, some of them from going to the police to report, and one of them is attributed to the economic factors that are being faced by most of the families in Uganda. The man is the breadwinner of the family, and at the end of the day is the one battering the wife, and the woman feels insecure, and she'll be like, no. If I report my husband, he's probably going to chase me out of home, and at the end of the day, I'm going to be homeless. Then there's also a factor attributed to cultural norms and gender stereotypes. There's stigma that is mostly caused by family members. It depends on which clan you're coming from and all that. In most cases, someone has maybe paid dowry for you to get you out of your home. And they take that as leverage that I paid for this woman. I have a right to do whatever I want to do to them.
I will just come to Olivia here. Do you feel that the exchange of dowry is enough justification for why a woman should submit even in the face of domestic violence?
Yes, please, it is. If I'm educated and I have money and you tell me you paid dowry, I can pay that dowry back and I go anywhere I want. So
everyone is agreeing to that.
The only problem is that most of the women here are not educated, are not empowered, they don't have money. So empowering girls would help and reduce on this gender-based violence.
Safina, do you think the Ugandan people, have trust in the justice system?
No. We do not have trust in the justice system, to be honest. The justice system is an arm of government. And in previous years, we've seen how government has been at the forefront of, victimizing women themselves.
In what ways?
For example, there was the Anti-Pornography Act. It was repealed, but it was also called the Miniskirt Bill. When this bill was signed into law, so many women were victims of harassment, because at that point it was looked at as, you literally going against the laws to dress the way you want. Men use this as sort of a cover to do all sorts of inhuman things to women. But also we saw how the police itself would, drag women off the street because you're wearing a dress that they deem to be inappropriate.
Let me just come back to Senior Superintendent here. Uganda has signed and ratified very serious conventions, from the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. You have the Maputo Protocol. You have the Sexual Offences Bill. You also have the Domestic Violence Act. You have the Children's Act. You have all these laws in place. Yet women continue to feel they cannot trust the justice system. Do you feel that the government does really care about the lives of women?
We are always at the front when it comes to blaming government or the justice system. Police, we are just part of the justice system. Personally, I've taken survivors for protection orders. I'm a lawyer by training. I do draft free of charge pleadings. Of course, you were a situation, and I've personally drafted so many pleadings to secure protection orders under the Domestic Violence Act. You can procure protection order for safety as the case progresses. But I've always been disappointed by the judiciary. With due respect, we forget other players in the criminal justice system and people there around us. So as government, I think we have to increase on the number of courts and state attorneys. We bring those services closer to the people such that people don't have to trek. Because out of the cases that are reported to police, many collapse because of those other challenges.
Okay, now I just want to go to the back. Does anyone of you have anything to say regarding the topic? Yes.
You're going to be scrolling down TikTok and you find a video of a lady asking herself, why would a man beat me? You've not yet paid dowry for me. Meaning there is a mindset that even ladies have a belief that for a man to beat you, for a man to oppress you, he should have paid dowry for you. So it is all about a mindset change.
I feel like when it comes to hitting a woman, there is no justification of hitting a woman. But at the same time, I feel like our society has been diluted, that we are losing the concept of a family, because even religiously and historically, there is supposed to be submission when it comes to a family.
Let me just come to Abdul here, who so much thinks that it is okay to beat a woman because for him it is his responsibility to do so. If your sister's partner beats her, are you also okay with that?
No, I don't feel okay.
You don't feel okay if your sister's partner beats her?
It's not good to beat a woman, but sometimes they force us.
Sometimes they force you to beat them.
Yes.
Isn't there another alternative where you can solve the situation that you're faced with, for example?
But some of the ladies, they force us to beat them.
All right. What do you think about that in the back? Yes.
What do you mean they force you? Do they hold your hand and make you slap them? I believe the man's superiority is based on controlling women in this era, because they feel like if I am not controlling a woman, then I'm not a man. In the Ugandan setting, we are so shameful to come forward to talk about these things, and we have that fear of judgment. Even in marriages, there are some violence that happens, like rape. Some men believe that there is no rape when you're married.
What does the law say about rape in Uganda?
We have the Penal Code Act. It defines rape as having sexual intercourse with a lady without her consent.
Does it apply in the case of intimate partners?
Apparently, it is being discussed under the Sexual Offences Bill. However, as our laws stand, we don't have a criminal offence named marital rape.
Okay.
We are trying to have it under the bill that is before Parliament.
And that bill has been there for ages and still not assented to. Does anyone in the back have anything to say about that?
I do believe religion is actually one of the biggest enablers of violence, because when we look like deeper, we find out that patriarchy existed long before most world religions became popular. And then most religions, like if you look at the religious texts, they say things like the woman should submit, the man is the head of the home. But like when we look at surveys show that in relationships where there are no hierarchies, partners report better relationship satisfaction.
I'll just come to here now to the ladies. What do you have to say to that?
We can never be the same as men and women, but rather the women should be taught, despite that they're empowered, they should have an healthy relationship, and also the men are being ignored in our society. There are most cases whereby the society, it prepares women to be good women, but doesn't prepare the boys to be good men. So now there is an unhealthiness relationship.
Okay, let me just come to you here.
It is wrong to beat a woman. I strongly urge against it, although a woman should know how to respect. And another thing is that it is never the woman's fault.
Okay.
To be violated.
When you say a woman should know how to respect, can a man not know how to respect as well?
No, a man should know how to respect a woman.
Okay, so we have an agreement that respect goes both ways.
Yes, it goes.
I'll keep it there.
I think it all comes back to victim blaming. Why do you blame the victim rather than the system? We live in a patriarchal society whereby men are trained to dominate and not to communicate, like what the other guy was saying. If I'm having issues with her, I'll beat her. Why don't you just communicate? And also women, they are being trained to endure rather than speak up about the things they are facing. And it also comes back to a religious background.
Now, Abdul Nasir has something to say. Have you changed your mind, or are you still maintaining your stance? this?
Yes, I've changed my mind.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's changed his mind. Okay.
But right now, according to their opinions, I want to become a good man.
Okay, that's good to know.
I want her to become my friend. But you have to, ladies, you have to show us your original behaviors.
And do you think communication can help in this?
Yes, it's good.
So now you will communicate instead of instilling fear and fighting?
Yes, I can change.
Okay, I think that's a good thing that we did here. Diana, we are talking about going forward. We're talking about solutions. What would you expect of society in terms of how we treat women and their livelihood, but also the lives of women we're talking about here?
I think first of all there should be awareness. The public should know that there are different forms of abuse. So if I go to police and report that I was abused financially, there should be some kind of investigation that is done. And the second thing that Olivia mentioned is women empowerment. Empowered women do not get abused easily. Either they'll fight back or they will have you reported.
Let me come to you again, Bob. You're working with men to change the mindset in the communities. What are some of the strategies that have worked effectively so far?
We have a designs hub where we bring together a couple of women, both survivors and then the people that don't have access to education, and we offer them skills in tailoring. At the end of the day, it is a year-long program, and at the end of the day, we've imparted knowledge in them for them to be able to go and, maybe seek a job in a tailoring company or a graphics design system. So we also offer education programs around digital literacy for women, mostly. What we do is we take them through a couple of courses around computer studies. At the end of the year, they are given a certificate which is known by the government so that they are able to go and seek jobs just like someone else who went to university. Then also, recently we also came up with a program of mechanics where we encourage young women, both out of school and in school, to come and join. What we do is we place them into partner garages where they get to learn how to work on motor vehicle mechanics and all. And at the end of the courses, we help them secure jobs either at the at the garages where they're working or in any other garages, just to tackle the element of economic empowerment.
I'll just come to you quickly, Kenari. As a journalist yourself, what do you think can be the role of the media in terms of raising awareness on gender-based violence, especially that most of the people who are affected are women?
Well, I think that we need to do a little more training. The journalists need to pick more interest, and that can only be done if the journalists themselves are trained on what is termed as GBV. Most of these topics, seem to be normal in our faces, but we don't understand them deeply. Once there's training, the journalists themselves will pick interest, and therefore be seeing more stories around GBV. There's a need to also, maybe on the side of the police, to be able to engage all stakeholders. One, the police needs to overhaul the system.
Why do you say that?
Because the empowered, the trained officers are the senior ones.
Okay.
The ones that deal with the actual cases, the ones that do the reporting, the ones that do the investigations are not trained, the junior officers. And therefore, I think that there's need to overhaul the system, and police needs to rethink this, because handling these cases and women and men being able to get justice, it will start with the police officers themselves. Because remember, it starts with a single case being recorded. Yeah. And therefore, if they are not trained, there's going to be difficulty in access to justice.
We so much agree that they are in fact a part of this, but we've mentioned the power imbalances in the beginning. We've also mentioned community. We've mentioned the cultural norms. What will it take, Caroline, to change the way women are treated in the society?
For starters, I'm glad we're having this conversation. We need to have more and more of these, because part of the problem is we're not talking about these things. So you find someone that is violated and they don't even have an idea that the situation they are in is violence, actually.
Let me just come to you as Senior Superintendent.
As Uganda Police Force, like my brother Kanara has said, we take training and capacity building as very focal in addressing gender-based violence. I'm so proud that we do sensitization. Personally, I've been to media houses, we've been to communities, we are using social media accounts to speak to people and condemn violence along with the community. Right. So we are doing so much in creating awareness through community policing, and we are sensitizing communities. We go to universities, we go to schools, even kindergarten, to talk about children's rights and the fight against gender-based violence.
That is very important. And I would just want to end with Safina here. We mentioned in the beginning you were 8 years old when you experienced sexual violence. What would you tell your 8-year-old self if you were to go back to that moment?
I'll tell her that she did nothing wrong. It wasn't her fault, and the shame is not hers to carry. It's for the rapist.
Well, that it wasn't her fault, and the shame has to be on the rapist and not her. I think we have already established that there is a problem, and there is so much that can be done to ensure that women are safe and they're indeed prospering for the development of Uganda, to be specific. Thank you so much. My name is Fatu Elika Muloshi. See you another time. Thank you.